Hello, once again, beloveds. My name is Dexter Kendrick, and I'd like to welcome you all back to the all-new My Heavenly Body TV here on the Dexter Kendrick Soul channel. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share these videos, these horoscope videos, to anybody who could benefit of them, and to keep updated on forecasts and other updates I'll be having coming down the pipe here as the world turns. All right, so the last 2 weeks have been very interesting for a lot of people, the people that I do my psychic readings for, and also people that I have astrological conversations for. There was a new moon on October 12th. We talked about that last week, the new moon that was in Libra. I highly recommend, if you haven't seen it, when you finish this video, why don't you go take a look at that video. It's Dexter Kendrick Horoscopes, new moon in Libra, October 12th, 2015, and we discuss how it was prompting us to make some necessary changes, and our circumstances were showing up with some very interesting information for us if we had been avoiding having any perhaps uncomfortable conversations. And so now, as promised, in about 3 days' time, today is the 23rd, the full moon, I said we were going to be working with that, forming and shaping that up until the 27th, and the 27th is 4 days away. So we have been working on some things. I'm sure some interesting things have come up in your relationships and contractual arrangements that have been developing over the last 2 weeks. But that turning point or climax is actually going to be taking place, like I said, on the 27th, which I believe is on Monday. Tuesday, the 27th, and that'll be in Taurus. We'll be having a conversation about what that means, what that turning point and climax is going to be like next week. So please don't forget to stay tuned. That's why it's important to like, subscribe, and share, just in case you're not around when this video is actually released. You'll get an update in your email inbox. So today I wanted to come through. There's always things going on in the heavens, and today the sun actually moved into the sign of Scorpio. So we're going to have a little chat today about what that means, and what is the essence of Scorpio, and what we can expect. I'm going to be talking about mostly the major aspects in the interest of time. If I do not have an opportunity to talk about your sign particularly, you can always message me at Dexter Kendrick Soul on Facebook, or you can direct message me at Dexter Kendrick Soul on Instagram. Be happy to chat with anybody who has some basic questions and point you in the right direction. Also available via private practice. So Scorpio. Scorpio is one of the water signs, one of the 3 water signs in the zodiac. The other 2 being Cancer and Pisces. And much of the energy around this season, you can take a look at this season and begin to get an essence of what Scorpio embodies, what is happening in nature at the time that the Scorpio season rolls around. Basically, Scorpio is ruled by 2 planets. Most signs have 1 planet. Scorpio is ruled by 2 because we had not discovered Scorpio's second planet, Pluto, until years and years and years, hundreds of years after astrology began to be used to determine psychology and events in our environment. And so Pluto and also Mars rule the sign of Scorpio. So also you're going to want to take a look at your birth chart. Go to alabe.com and take a look at what house, what area of life the sun is in at this time of year while it's in Scorpio, so you can see what it is you're going to be working on and working through over the next 30 days. The sun travels through each sign once every 30 days throughout the 12-month cycle. And so right now we're working through the energy of Scorpio. For people who are new, the sun is always the focal point of any horoscope because it represents our self-expression. The sun shines. And so wherever it is shining a developmental energy. It represents our consciousness and will tell us what it is that we're thinking about, what we are working on, what we are working through, and how we're developing. And so moving forward, let's step into mythology mode for a second. Everybody who knows me knows I love mythology because it kind of epitomizes the human heroic journey. And so when we step into mythology, the 2 rulers of Scorpio are our good friend Pluto, god of the underworld. We cannot seem to get away from him right now, right? Ever since he went direct in Capricorn at the end of September, we've had to deal with a number of issues in our lives, old wounds that have been coming back from the grave, old lovers and relationships that have not been properly laid to rest, to bid them a decent farewell. And some of them just do not want to seem to go away. Am I correct? Some skeletons from our closet seem to want to keep coming up from the underworld, the depths, and say, no, actually, this isn't over just yet. It's almost over. It's winding down. I promise you that. But there are some things that are just unhealed that have to be worked through. And that is where we find our fortitude, and that's where we get our integrity. And that's where we come into contact with our raw nature, where niceties do not serve. Being clear actually serves, and making clear decisions and cutting things off actually serve. Let's do a little bit of mythology really quick. So Pluto was one of the sons of Saturn. I highly recommend, if you don't know Saturn's history, to go back to Saturn and Sagittarius. Take a look at that. I kind of walked you through that process. He was one of the sons of Saturn, and after he overthrew his father along with his brothers Zeus and Neptune, Poseidon, they drew lots, and he was given the underworld, the place where the dead resided, souls resided, old wounds reside with regard to our own personal consciousness. And he was in charge of the breakdown of things, and also how we cannot go back on any word that we've given, how we cannot go back on any choice or pathway we've chosen in life, but that we must see it through, and once it's done, it's done. We can't bring it back. And so many of us have been revisited over this conversation in Libra, since Libra is a sign of partnerships and marriage, to ask ourselves, well, could we perhaps pick something up where it left off? Could we perhaps rekindle something we thought was dead, since the other party seems to be interested in finding out where we stand now? But Pluto always says, you cannot be who you were 5 years ago. You can't even be who you were last night, because you are constantly regenerating yourself. And that's one of the essences of Pluto, is transformation. So Scorpio, being ruled by Pluto, Pluto's going to be intensified during this month. So this conversation of letting go of the old so that we can transform into something brand new is going to be intensified this month, because this is the energy, the lens through which the sun is going to be shining. So the sun is going to be shining through Scorpio, so we're going to be seeing a lot more of Plutonian energy within ourselves. And so it's certainly not a bad thing. I will say that for those of us who perhaps had any kind of struggling since the new moon on the 12th, that things are going to be a little bit easier. You'll see that when I talk about specific signs in just a second. So as I was saying, so Pluto represents those things that we have to send to the underworld, those painful circumstances, either rejection or humiliation or fear or terror, any kind of horrific experiences we may have had with other people or within ourselves or in life. In order to function, we kind of have to send it elsewhere. And so Pluto makes sure that we remember those things, we find value in those things, and gives us certain new eyes so that we can move forward with authenticity. Authenticity that has little to no regard with how other people feel about our personal journey, because we have been through some things and nobody can speak to what we have been through except us, and so we have to do what we can to deal. Also, Pluto is not the only ruler of Scorpio. Mars is also another ruler of Scorpio. We have not touched on Mars historically, but just briefly, Mars is one of the sons of Zeus. Excuse me, actually he's a stepson of Zeus. So Zeus had a wife, and her name was Hera or Juno, depending on which conversation you're in. And she gave birth to Mars on her own, without Jupiter. Jupiter was always sleeping with this one and that woman, turning himself into all different types of beings to seduce different women. He was a terrible philanderer. And in vengeance and revenge, she gave birth to her own child and said, I don't really need you. Of course, Hera is the patron goddess of marriage and of the home, women who take care of the home, and also childbirth. So she gave birth to her own son, which was Mars. And Zeus hated Mars. They had a terrible relationship. Mars was born out of anger, and so he is affectionately termed the god of war. And so what Mars represents in our chart is how we go about getting what we want. if we know what we want, when we finally decide what we want, we finally actually decide to go after it and get it. The only time we will have problems with other people is if they stand in our way. And so these are the two energies that Scorpios are born with. This conversation of assertion, this conversation of raw energy and material of things that we have to learn how to live with, forgive, letting go. The essence of Pluto is always rumblings of anger or rage from things that are out of our control and that we're unable to reconcile. And so in order to move forward, the only way to be able to survive spiritually is actually to let them go. And so that's what we're going to be visiting over this 30-month period. You'll probably find it's a lot easier to let things go now, even though while you may had emotions over some things previously, you're going to be finding that you're not feeling so intensely about them any longer, because you just worked through that when the sun squared Pluto at the new moon in Libra. Moving forward, so a few things about the different signs this month. Cancers. I know last month, over the last 2 weeks after the square in Libra, there's some things has shown up as being pretty challenging. Of course, the square is a dynamic energy. It represents irreconcilable differences. But now you're going to find that things pretty much work in your favor with very little effort on your part. You're going to find that during this month, your focus is going to be more on fun. Whereas last month it may have been on issues around the home and family. This area, this month is going to be around fun, maybe romance. Looks like your relationships with other people are going to be the focal point, and also your communications with other people. So because, of course, Pluto is going to be aspected at this time, you are going to be taking a look at your relationships, those that have been laid to rest and are trying to come back up and revisit you, and also those that need to be laid to rest, those that are slowly dying and you just kind of wish they would disappear, but they don't seem to want to let go just yet. You're going to find very creative ways to manage that. Perhaps it's putting on your block filter. Perhaps it's not answering a phone call where you normally would have. Perhaps it's just taking one step at a time to finally release yourself of something that has been weighing you down. It's probably a partnership. The 7th house is always partnerships and marriage. And the 3rd house is always communication. So any method of communication that any one of your number of difficulties is trying to come back, you're going to be finding creative ways to manage that so that you can release and have the peace of mind that you deserve. And that's only for some cancers. The pendulum swings both ways. For cancers who perhaps have not been as communicative in their relationships and perhaps have hit a wall, a stalemate with their partner, you actually will have an opportunity now to transform that relationship where both parties are able to relate and communicate highly effectively. You're going to be putting it on your listening ears, and you're going to have an opportunity to have a breakthrough in your relationship. And since the full moon is only 4 days away, it looks like that's already something that is beginning to develop for you and about to give birth. So congratulations on that. And thank you for overcoming that hurdle, of the square. Last month, while the sun was in Libra, the entire month was a challenging month for Cancers and Capricorns. And so, having overcome that hump, you've done a great thing. Pisces, this month for you with the sun in Scorpio, it looks like there might be some long distance travel involved. It looks like it's probably time to take a little vacation from your day-to-day responsibilities, and you might want to go do something brand new. It looks like it may also involve some group activity or some kind of event or function. You might be going to an actual location that's different than your normal day-to-day routine, something that will break you out of the routine. Once again, you've overcome a period of adjustment last month. There's been lots of adjustments in your day-to-day world, and frankly, you actually need a break. You need a moment. You might be sick and tired of it, actually, because Saturn is currently traveling through Sagittarius, which is creating a lot of stress on your plate, a lot of changes coming down the pipe, especially professionally, and so this will give you an opportunity to break away from the norm. Looks like you might be taking another person with you. It might be a romantic partner, you might be traveling with a business partner, or you might be making some kind of a relationship when you get to your destination. But this month, everything kind of falls into place for you. Very little effort on your part. You won't have to do much. There'll be a lot of activity, but there won't actually be much progress being made, because now it's time to relax and enjoy. So congratulations to you as well for overcoming last month's hurdle of adjustments in Libra. Scorpio is a sign that always blesses you with much relaxation, gifts, optimism, and luck. Secondly, the earth signs. Let's talk about Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. What is happening for you as the sun is traveling through Scorpio in your chart? Looks like for Capricorn, as the sun is traveling through Scorpio, which for you is the 11th house of friendships, groups, and organizations, events, etc. Looks like this month you're going to be interested. You're going to have the opportunity to go and connect with people in venues that are like mind, of same mind. So you're going to be wanting to hang out with people. If your mind is in the arts, you're going to want to be participating in artistic forms such as musical events or plays or theater. If your bent is more toward parties, then you're going to want to go to different parties where you can be around people of like mind. That is going to be the opportunity that presents itself to you, and it also looks like it might involve some travel. It may involve long distance travel, maybe not so much, but Halloween is coming up, so it might just be a Halloween party that's out of your normal neighborhood, and that's appropriate at this time. But because the sextile or the 60-degree angle represents opportunity, you don't have to go, but there is great opportunity if you do go and hang out with individuals who are of the same mind, because you're more than likely going to bump into somebody who can further your other pursuits in a number of different areas. So you definitely have my blessing and my encouragement to take a look at it. If it feels like it's something you might be interested in, go, especially if it's out of the norm for you. And also, let's take a look at where Mars is. Mars is in the 9th house, so it looks like you're going to have the courage to step out of your comfort zone and your box. You're also going to be you're in the process, like I said before, since 2008, of evolution. You're transforming yourself. You're starting to let go of caring about what other people think about you, and you're beginning to make some significant strides to making you happy. And so Pluto is killing off those aspects of yourself that previously have cared about validation from other people, that have questioned yourself whenever you've not been praised for whatever moves or decisions you've made, and you're giving yourself the permission to be your own authority. So this month, while the sun is making an opportunistic sextile to your sun, please take every opportunity at your advantage to go and hang out with people of like mind, because you'll be better off for it, especially next month. Next month is going to be a little bit more challenging for all of us, but right now, Scorpio has given many of us an opportunity to take some rest. We've been doing a lot of hard work over the last 2 months, and we really deserve a break. Taurus. Looks like for you, the sun is in your 7th house of partnerships and marriage. So this month is going to be all about your intimate relationships with other people. That's where you're going to be developing. You're going to be noticing that some developments have come up in your relationship life, personal and business. And what are your relationships telling you at this time? Of course, Pluto is the ruler of this sign, so there's some things that are dying off. Perhaps you've seen yourself in a certain way. Perhaps you have been drawn in a certain way to behave with partners in a way that is destructive to the relationship. And so now there's an opportunity being presented here in your 5th house of romance and self-expression. How can you change how you express yourself with other people? How can you tone down your intensity just a little bit so people actually want to listen to what you have to say, instead of you having to feel as though you have to force yourself into their world and their viewpoint? And so all of your relationships are going to be providing you with a significant opportunity to make a shift for the better. And the essence of this conversation for you, the opportunity, is perspective. And so where can you get a larger perspective on how other people may not do things the way you do them, but it doesn't mean that they're not as valid? And what about in relationships? If you are a single Taurus, at this time you might see yourself as partnership material. Perhaps somebody comes through and tells you something about yourself that you have not heard before. Something that wakes you up to the potential that lies within, and something actually can develop from that. And so that's the essence of this month. Every time around this year, you're dealing in relationships, because the 7th house, the Scorpio rules the 7th house of partnerships and marriage for you. So take a look at that. There's going to be a turning point in your relationships come Tuesday. Well, actually, building up through Tuesday and, of course, all of next week. So just pay attention to what is trying to develop and give birth in your life. Whenever there's a full moon, we say that the moon is actually giving birth. And we see that at the new moon, you barely see it. And then as we move forward, you can see more and more. It almost looks like a pregnant woman beginning to show, right? And so that is what's beginning to show. It's going to be illuminated for you. What shifts and positive changes you can make in your relationship that'll change your perspective and give you actually what you would like. Virgo. So for Virgo, Scorpio represents your communication with other people. So where is it important for you to let go of some previously held on to insecurities regarding your communication with other people? Remember, Pluto, god of the underworld, had a helmet of invisibility, and he was always sneaking around to get his work done. So where have you perhaps been beating around the bush with regard to communications, especially in your love life? And or any crafts or hobbies that you might have? Where have you been sneaking around with ideas and perhaps holding them a little too close to your chest? Because this month, the opportunity is going to be on beginning to let some of those things through. Beginning not to be so secretive with other people, because that which you attempt to hide from others, you'll also hide from yourself. Why is it that your agenda has to be so secretive? It doesn't necessarily have to be secretive, and it doesn't make you more vulnerable. Many times with this kind of an aspect with Pluto, we feel vulnerable, and so we hold those vulnerabilities close to our chest, but whatever you're holding close to your chest can't breathe, and so it can't live. And so since Pluto is the god of death, you are going to be visited by circumstances and people that show you you can open up a little bit more. It's okay to breathe just a little bit. But once again, the sextile means opportunity. No one's going to force you to do this. You'll have to decide whether you're going to do that on your own. But this month provides you that opportunity. Mind you, next month is going to be forcing you to make some necessary changes. So I would take this month's rest and respite to do what I could to make sure that next month doesn't have to be as challenging as it at this time is projected to be. Scorpio, we are talking about you. It is your season. It's the last one. Scorpio, the sun is in your first house. So every year, this is your birthday. Happy New Year to all the Scorpios this month. And so this month, it's going to be a conversation of your identity. Where have you been since the last year? What has life brought you through? What has life brought to you? How have you overcome those challenges? And where are you developing transformatively now? Take a look at your relationships. Also take a look at your emotional nature. How are you responding to things that show up? The water signs always represent how we habitually respond to events that show up in our lives. And they represent all the emotions that go on beneath the surface that we don't have words for quite yet. But the good thing is that this month, the conversation for you is also going to be on communications with other people, communications with people that you talk to on a regular basis, cousins, relatives, aunts, uncles, siblings, etc. And where is it that your communication style with them is lacking because of some conversation or complex that you might have about being vulnerable or about being needy? About needing other people. It's okay to need other people because those other people also need you. You have skills and valuable insight that you can share. Of course, Scorpio is the notorious detective of the zodiac, and people need you. And so there's also a conversation of groups. What groups are you a part of where your input could really help other people? At this time, you are going to need help from other people to get some things taken care of. So take a look at that, and don't look at yourself as being a burden on other people. If you need help, ask for it. Certainly people know that you're not the type to ask people for help all the time, so people will take you seriously. Not all Scorpios. Some Scorpios can use that to their advantage, but I always talk about the signs in their most positive expression. And so during this month, take a look at where there's opportunity to receive help so that you can make things happen for yourself. There are people who believe in you and who will help you further your goals. Please stay tuned. Next Friday, we're going to be talking about the full moon in Taurus. The moon is giving birth to some significant things. And then also stay tuned because at the end of this month, on November 22nd, the sun is moving into Sagittarius, where Saturn is currently residing. Of course, we're taking a new look at an old devil. I told you we would be talking about him again. He'll be back around. This month, everybody, all signs, take the opportunity, if you can, to enjoy yourself. There are some signs who might find this month a little bit challenging. The fixed signs, Aquarius and Leo, And yeah, Aquarius and Leo, you might find this month a little challenging. People and circumstances are going to force you to prove yourself and make necessary changes. There will be some changes that will be out of your control, but you can manage. Certainly as fixed signs, you like to get your hands into something and see it through. You don't like when life pulls the rug out from under you, but that's Pluto's job. It's important that we remember that we're alive and that we learn about how creative we can be when circumstances shift for us. So take a look at that. As far as the fire signs are concerned, for the most part, this will be a month of adjustment for you. You can manage it. It's not a dynamic transit for you. That's the only reason I didn't mention Aries and Sagittarius at this time. And this is just not a dynamic transit for you. Next month will be. So strap in your safety belts. Enjoy this month while you can. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Dexter Kendrick Soul. And I'll be coming through next week with your conversation on the full moon in Taurus. Be blessed, my friends.